Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privee is a fragrance with 3 main notes. This Gentleman is a perfect addition to an already fantastic lineup. Hi there, I'm Peter from Central. I'm glad you stopped in. If you're new to this channel, on this channel I talk about fragrances, designer, niche, perfumers, so on and so forth. So if you're into fragrances or you just want to smell nice, consider subscribing for more content. And if you get anything out of this video at all, don't forget to leave a like. I want to thank you in advance, and now let's dive right into our 2022 release. It's a really good one. The first thing you'll notice is that the flacon is the same size and style as the Gentleman EDT Intense released in 2021. This Eau de Toilette Intense is a stunning aromatic with a cardamom basil top and a soft iris in the belly and a woody coumarin dry down. The original bottles looked a little bit more like this. They had a little bit more of a glass bottom and they were just greater in size by just a smidgen. Much more glass at the very bottom of the bottles. Altogether, both of these look a little bit like a pocket flacon, like something you could put in your side pocket if you're traveling in a suit or something like that. Actually, the smaller bottles work a lot better for that if you're the kind of person who likes to respray. At this point, there are 6 fragrances in the Gentleman Givenchy lineup, 7 if you include the 1974 Gentleman Givenchy. However, this one doesn't sport the note of iris. Instead, it is a little bit of an earthy patchouli with a little bit of an animalic undertone. It's a classic fragrance for sure. Also, the perfumer on this one was Paul Lager, I believe it was. So completely different perfumers. The remaining 6, other than the 1974, are all going to have the same perfumers, which are Olivier Cresp and Nathalie Larson. Givenchy Gentleman did not continue from 1974 and just made iterations of it. It kind of lay dormant for a little while. It did get relaunched in 2017, and this one is going to be a sweet iris with a little bit of pear and pineapple at the very top. So it's a sweeter iris and a little bit on the fruity side. It's actually quite nice for the warmer days. And then of course in 2018, they came out with Givenchy Gentleman, and it's an Eau de Parfum fragrance, which was this one. And this one is going to have some orris root, some tolu balsam, and there's going to be cloves and vanilla in this one. Many people love this fragrance right here because it rivals fragrances like Dior Intense, Dior Homme Intense, and Valentino Uomo. So if you like those 2 fragrances, you're really going to like the Givenchy Gentleman, the EDP from 2018. Then in 2019, the entire line went a little bit lighter, and it came out with the Givenchy Gentleman, and it's the cologne version. This cologne version is a beautiful summer fragrance, and it's going to have iris, ambroxan, and a musky dry down. A great scent for the hot summer days. Really nice to wear. And of course it follows sort of the iris of the 17 and 18. Really beautiful, made for summer. Then in 2020, the fragrance or the perfumers kind of switched it up a little bit on us, and they came out with this 2020 release. It's a superb woody fragrance called Givenchy Gentleman it's an Eau de Parfum, and it's Givenchy Boisé. And Boisé means wooded, so wooded gentleman. It's a really beautiful fragrance. It's a little bit different than the earlier ones. And this one, you're going to have some cacao. It's a little bit of a floral geranium note in this one, and it's really quite beautiful. The next one is released in 2021. It's called Gentleman Givenchy, and it is an Eau de Toilette, and it's an intense. This one is going to be just a little bit different again from the Boisé and the ones before. I actually wear this one quite a bit nowadays. It's kind of a modern formulation of it. I really like it. And this one is going to have some cardamom. There's some basil and a little bit of coumarin in the dry down. That was actually my scent of the day, and it really dries down nicely. Really love it. Great fragrance from 2021. And of course in 2022 they came out with the one that's the main player for today, and it's once again a beautiful fragrance borrowing the language of the whiskey distillers. This woody iris with a little bit of whiskey has already earned a space in many people's hearts. Reserve Privee begins with the note of bergamot at the very top. It's a really wonderful fragrance, and I've been wearing a lot of it. As we still have fluctuating days where I live. Nice, soft, powdery spray. So what you have, like I said at the beginning, you're gonna have the note of bergamot, which is immediately surrounded by the note of iris. So you got the freshness of the bergamot, there's a little bit of a tartness from the bergamot, and the soft powdery note from the iris, and they're doing sort of going back and forth, sort of doing a dance with each other. It's really quite beautiful. But don't worry guys, there's going to be plenty of nuttiness to go around from the note of chestnut. So you have some iris, some bergamot, and some chestnut to kind of warm it up a little bit. Nice, full-bodied fragrance, really beautifully done. And then of course you got the note of whiskey. Now I don't want you to think of this fragrance or the note of whiskey like you're smelling a bunch of alcohol in the fragrance or the rum-like sweetness. It's not like that at all. This is more like taking a glass with some whiskey or maybe some Dalmore whiskey, 30 years old, and kind of running it under your nose, and you get the hint of the whiskey as you're passing it by your nose. It's really quite beautiful, and that note sort of sits right on top of the fragrance altogether. That whiskey is sort of always kind of there. It's really beautifully done, and it does stay quite a bit. Now, some people have said that they wish the whiskey note was stronger, but then it would completely change this fragrance. I think that the hint of whiskey sitting right at the top as it passes you by, as if you were taking a glass and running it under your nose, is the perfect addition to this fragrance to give it its own little uniqueness. So just imagine yourself taking a Dalmore whiskey and running it by your nose. Really, really nice. To me, it's the perfect blend of the two worlds. You got the perfumers and the master distillers. Really well done in this fragrance right here. It does lean a little bit masculine, but if you're into whiskey and iris, you go for it. And with that being said, I get about 6 to 7 hours out of this fragrance, which is plenty for me because usually if I spray it in the morning, 6 to 7 hours later, I want to wear something different. Or if I wear it in the evenings, by the time I get home, I want something so I can go to bed. I don't want to continue smelling the same fragrance. So 6 to 7 hours for me is plenty. It's the perfect sort of distance that I like a fragrance to go. And you're going to have a little bit heavier protection for the first 2 hours, as with many fragrances. So the longevity and protection is right in line with the other Givenchy Gentleman fragrances. About the same, but 6 to 7 hours with 2 hours of good protection. And of course, Reserve Privee, Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privee Eau de Parfum will remind you of some other fragrances. It will remind you of the Dior Homme Intense, of course it will. It will remind you of, Valentino Uomo Intense, of course it will, because it has the iris note. So if you like these fragrances, then you're guaranteed to like this one with a little hint of whiskey in it. It's actually quite beautiful. Now, I also think that if you have these, no way, shape, and form do I think that it's redundant. Of course, the iris note is, but because it has its own unique sort of character, I think it's not redundant at all. Like, I think these two are quite different from one another. Also, the price point of this one, which is right at around $100, is really a good price point. For me, I do four to six sprays, and this one is going to be plenty, and I really enjoy wearing it. I think it has enough of its own identity, and it warrants you to give it a second look, even if you have the other ones along that line with a good twist of whiskey. And can you ever have enough of a good thing? Can you? All right, that was it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to love, like, share, all those wonderful things. Subscribe if you want to get more fragrance content. I want to thank you in advance. Until next time, I want you to take good care of yourself. Always smell nice, and I will talk to you soon. Until then, Centra.